Hey, this is Noah with The Creative Startup, and today we are talking about how you can use Twitter to get advice from your favorite people. A couple weeks back, I was assigned in school to do like an informational interview. So basically, if you don't know what that is, the idea is that you find industry experts or an industry expert in whatever you're hoping to go into. You sit down with them, you have coffee or whatever it might be, and just ask them questions about what they're going into, what they're going to do. And when I got this assignment, I said, you know what, I'm going to throw a twist on there, bring it into the 21st century. What if instead of emailing back and forth and trying to make a coffee date and all this stuff with one person, what if I just tweeted out at a bunch of people, a bunch of different industry experts, a bunch of people I respect, and a bunch of people I look up to, tweet to them simple little questions and see if they would reply. And much to my surprise, they did. A lot of the experts I messaged did. So today we're going to talk about 3 tips for getting replies back from people, getting good advice back from the experts, and kind of starting that conversation. It's never a bad thing to be talking with these people who know what's going on. And then I'm going to go through a couple of things I learned personally to give you an example if you want to stick around at the end. But mostly just this beginning part will walk you through exactly how to tweet these people. So if that's all you're looking for, just watch the beginning here. So your first step is always lead with the question, right? Like if it's someone you really look up to and your tweet starts with, oh my gosh, I love your work, you're such a great entrepreneur, or you're such a great this or that, and I really respect all the things that you do, and I just think that you've done such a great blah, 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 blah. They're going to see that and be like, oh yeah, more fan mail, great, whatever. They're not going to look closer at it because I'm sure they get a bunch of stuff like that. And even if they don't, it doesn't require any action. Like, oh, here's a nice person saying a nice thing about me. Well, great. Instead, what you should do is lead with your question. For example, I was wondering, I asked this producer, and I'm going to get to this later, but I wanted to ask this producer what his favorite microphone was, or his 2 favorite microphones. Instead of saying, hey, I love your work, and this guy's a really respected guy. He's worked with Demi Lovato, the Jonas Brothers, and Nick Jonas, Switchfoot, like a bunch of huge industry names. And so, like, I really respect this guy. But instead of saying, hey, I respect and love your work so much, blah, 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 by the way, what's your answer to this? I just tweeted him, hey, 2 favorite microphones. What are your 2 favorite microphones? By the way, really love your work, really respect, blah, blah, blah. And he replied to me in like 3 hours. So that's the first rule. Lead with the question. And I would actually say this is good advice for any area of life, whether it's emailing people that you look up to or just texting even your friends. I found if you want replies and you want them quick, lead with the important stuff. Don't lead with, hey man, what's up? How's it going, bro? No, lead with, hey, I got this question. By the way, how you doing? It just creates a much quicker dialogue and people are actually going to pay attention to it. Second thing, go for volume. If you're looking for advice and you just kind of like message one person, there's no chance. There's very little chance you're going to get anything back. Personally, I'll shoot tweets to 10 people and I'll get maybe 3 replies. I'll shoot emails to 15 people, maybe get 2 replies. So if you actually want that advice, you want to make those connections, you got to push the volume. You got to go for a lot. You got to tweet a lot of people, get in contact with a lot of people, and then you can actually expect to get some replies. And the third thing, be humble. Don't be the guy who tries to pretend like you're on the same level with these experts. If you really want to tweet or email or anything like that with experts, be a humble little guy. Just be the humble one, right? Like I remember a couple weeks ago in class, I was telling people about how I do this, how I like to tweet not necessarily famous people, but industry experts and get advice back. And they're like, oh, I feel so stupid doing that. I don't want to be like the stupid little college kid, blah, blah. Like I want people to be, I want to be respected. It's like, well, you've done nothing to deserve respect, right? Like, you can expect to be respected when you're actually at that level. But until you're at that level, you got to be humble. So say, hey, I have this question. I love your work. And don't talk about yourself, right? Unless it's really relevant. Like, I'll say, hey, I'm a beginning producer in Minneapolis. I'll include that in my description just in case that triggers something else that they might want to think about. But I'll say, here's my question. I'm a producer in Minneapolis. Love your work. That's all it needs to be. So, just tell them who you are, so it's not coming out of the blue. But don't say, hey, I'm a producer and I'm working on this and I'm doing that and I'm this and that and the other thing. Like, they don't give a crap. They really don't care what you're doing. Just let them know who you are, why you might be interested, but beyond that, shut it down. It doesn't matter. So now let's look at a couple email exchanges, a couple tweet conversations that I've had, so you kind of have a template to go off of, and really just want to hear some great advice. Here it is. I posted this also on my blog, and so I'll put a link down below if you want to click and go just read this. But here's what I got. It's called What I Learned from the Experts. My first email I shot off to Derek Sivers. Now, if you don't know Derek Sivers, that's okay. That's pretty normal. But you probably do know CD Baby. And CD Baby is a company that Derek Sivers started himself, just selling CDs to people, and now it's one of the biggest music publishers in the world. He's started various companies focusing on helping musicians succeed in a changing industry. Derek currently moves between Singapore and New Zealand, where he advises several companies on top of writing a great blog and workshopping new economic and philosophical concepts for the music industry. So that's my little bio on him. This is what I emailed him. Derek, I find all too often the music industry is filled with apathetic people complaining about how broken the system is. However, no one seems to be all too keen on fixing it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear any thoughts you might have about the music and the way people are going to enjoy it in the years to come. And Derek replies, that's true in every avenue of life. Many complain, few act. I also emailed, how important do you think it is to focus on one particular practice, say producing? He said, only focus on one practice if that's all you're interested in. Like, I know many guys who only wanted to play their instrument and that's all. No writing, no producing, just playing. I was the opposite. Learning to do everything really helped me. As you can see, that's such valuable advice for me. And he linked a couple articles that he's written, and I read those, and it's super, super helpful. And I just love that not only is it good advice, but it's from a super credible source. This guy who's built like half of the music industry at this point, a super humble, kind guy, someone that I aspire to be like. My next interviewee was John Fields, and he has produced several records. I said this before, but for Switchfoot, Demi Lovato, Miley Cyrus, the Jonas Brothers. John Fields is pure experience when it comes to varied genres, artists, and instruments. Therefore, I decided to ask John as technical a question as I could come up with. This is what I asked John. If you could only have 2 microphones for the rest of your life, which 2 would you choose? John replied back, in like 3 hours, by the way, SM57, this bad boy right here, and a Neumann U67, which is also a great microphone. I do not have one because it costs like $2,000 to $3,000. Anyways, another great piece of advice, and the trick to this one, because this was on Twitter, and the trick to that is it's brief. My question is brief, but even more brief, his answer. I gave him a very simple, it's not a yes, no, but he can reply in one sentence. And so I always try to do that. Like, I'll say, what are your thoughts on the changing climate in the music industry and how is that going to affect us in the years to come? Like, maybe if there's an email exchange, that'd be great. But when it's just a tweet, say, hey, give me 2 little pieces of advice. Give me 2 little things that I can run with. 1 sentence or less. So make sure to keep it brief on their side as well. And then my final interviewee was Benji Rogers. Benji started Pledge Music, a company that helps artists run crowdfunding campaigns for albums and tours. They have run thousands of campaigns for thousands of artists. And this is what I tweeted Benji. Just one question. I'm currently working on starting a publishing company and have a ton of admiration for the work you've done with Pledge Music. So see there, I didn't necessarily lead with my question, but I did lead with one question, right? So he sees that one question, then he's going to read the rest. So just make sure your intent is clear in the first sentence. I've done a ton of admiration for the work you've done with Pledge Music. I'm wondering, what is the most important decision you've made concerning your companies? What is the most important decision you've made concerning your companies? Again, that leads to a really brief answer if he wants to give it, but if he wants to give it, it can be longer too. This is what Benji replied. This is some of the best advice I've ever gotten. Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are. Ask for help when you need it. If it hurts to hear, it's probably on the mark. I love that. I just want you guys to be able to use Twitter, use email, use the internet as a tool to learn from the experts. Learn from the best of the best. Connect with the best of the best. And don't do it to say you did it. Don't do it to seem cool. Don't do it to tell them about you. Do it if you want to learn. That's all I got for you today. Again, this is Noah with the Creative Startup. Have a great Thanksgiving week. Catch you later.